All right, well, welcome everybody to the AANEM Neuromuscular Fellowship Fair. We're excited that you're all able to join us tonight. We have 4 programs presenting for you tonight. We have Duke University Medical Center, Johns Hopkins University Program, Wake Forest University Baptist Medical Center, and Emory University School of Medicine. So each program will be giving a brief presentation. Once their presentations are all done, we will go into a question and answer session where you'll be able to ask questions to, the programs, to a particular individual. If we have any fellows on here, you're welcome to ask questions to the fellows as well. So we will go ahead and get started.
Yeah, thanks for taking interest in the Duke Neuromuscular Fellowship. I'm the program director and the fellowship coordinator is Chris Berry. I've included a couple photos here from our hospital campus. There's also a link to a tour at the end of this presentation, so you can take a virtual tour as well. Some of these are screenshots from the internet. This particular one I took myself one day of the original clinic building, and that's usually this Baker House here and the entry point into the Duke South and the Emg Lab in our offices here. So about the fellowship, we have a long-standing tradition of training neuromuscular fellows. Dr. Sanders started the fellowship back in 1980. We've had 106 fellows that have trained in the program, including our current trainees. About half have gone into academic medicine and half in private practice. Ultimately, we have 4 fellowship positions and an option for an advanced second year of training in the ICGME fellowship program. And typically how that works is that in those years, we'd have 3 ACGME spots and then 1 ICGME fellow in those certain circumstances. So a little bit about our division. We have 12 faculty members now. In the last 4 years, we went through, and Chris Berry was nice enough to go through and look at all our recent peer-reviewed publications. There are 99 in the last 4 years and 29 funded studies that our faculty have had grant leadership in over the past year. A little bit about our faculty and their subspecialty areas of interest. So Dr. Bedlack has been running our ALS multidisciplinary clinic here for many years, and Dr. Lee is a recent graduate from our program last year who's joined him and started up some clinical trials of her own. I have an interest in autoimmune neuropathies, and I also have an interest in education, of course, with being the fellowship director. I also am the medical student clerkship director, in addition to the Emg Lab rotation director for our neurology residents. They have about 3 months in our Emg Lab, and so you have the opportunity to work with them during your year of training and fellowship. Dr. Gonzalez has an interest in research, has been doing a UCB fellowship, and she's finishing that up, and she has an interest in autoimmune myopathies and neuropathies as well. Dr. Guptill is a faculty director of the Duke Early Phase Research Unit, in addition to being a member of the Duke Clinical Research Institute, and his subspecialty area of interest is neuromuscular junction disease. Dr. Hobson Webb is our neuromuscular ultrasound expert, and she's also the medical director of the Neuroscience Clinical Research Organization and the MDA Clinic, and she has some varied interests in neuromuscular junction disease and myopathies and neuropathies as well. Dr. Jewell, our illustrious fearless leader, is our division chief, and he has interests in neuromuscular junction disease. And Dr. Massey, of note, was our first neuromuscular fellow. And so she has an interest in neuromuscular junction disease in addition to helping run our chemodenervation program. Dr. Mayberry is a recent graduate from our program last year. He has some interest in inpatient side of things in medicine, general neurology, in addition to education. He's the clinical skills faculty member for the first year medical students, in addition to running our sub-I for the medical students for the 4th year students. And he's developing an interest in hereditary amyloidosis as well as sort of a neuropathy interest. Dr. Raja has been heavily involved in research since finishing with our program, and her interest is neuromuscular junction disease, and she is the medical director of the Duke Early Phase Research Unit. Of course, Dr. Sanders started the fellowship program here and still heavily involved, and even during COVID times, you could usually find him here in the Emg Lab in his office, talking with fellows and helping support our research program here. And lastly, Dr. Smith is our pediatric neuromuscular specialist, and he founded and is directing the pediatric MDA clinic. So some of the procedures that you can learn while you're here are core needle muscle biopsy, skin biopsies, chemodenervation, neuromuscular ultrasound, of course, EMG nerve conduction studies and exposure to single fiber EMG. So a few pictures of core needle muscle biopsy techniques and a little bit of an older photo here that we have pre-COVID times of our pathology conference back when we met around the bank of microscopes. Single fiber EMG by Dr. Sanders. I think this is Dr. Jewell's arm with a neuromuscular ultrasound here. We're just giving some illustrative photos. Generally speaking, the way that we have our fellowship set up is 3-month rotations of blocks with the core faculty. You have exposure to some of the other faculty members that I mentioned as they covered, MDA clinic or the Emg Lab from time to time. But typically you'll be working 3 months with Dr. Massey, with Dr. Hopkins, myself, and Dr. Jewell. And there's other kind of subspecialty clinics built into those rotations, as well as in addition to our own private clinics. And a little bit more about those subspecialty clinics. So we have one of the largest myasthenia gravis clinics in the country, very active adult MDA clinic and pediatric MDA clinic, our multidisciplinary ALS clinic. I started a referral kind of basis virtual multidisciplinary clinic for hereditary amyloidosis with the cardiology folks here and hematology oncology. So that's been very active of late, and we are a GBS CAP Center of Excellence. So the Emg Lab, just a little bit about that. We have a networked integrated system. We have 4 excellent technicians. The ultrasound is routinely utilized in all of our studies. Generally speaking, we have about 6 to 8 EMG rooms going kind of simultaneously. 12 to 16 studies per day is our general volume. And even in the last year with the pandemic, we did about 3,900 studies. So inpatient responsibilities, there are inpatient EMG studies. We typically bring them down to the lab as we're connected directly to the hospital, and occasionally there's a need to travel to the inpatient side to perform a study or neuromuscular consults on a case-by-case basis. So our approach to didactics is there's at the beginning, there's a twice weekly noon conference in July and August, and then we go from there weekly onward. There's generally a monthly pathology conference where we meet with our pathologists, currently via Zoom, which is working out amazingly well. And then in the spring, we tend to focus more on journal club, in addition to this waveform conference where we discuss interesting EMG cases, and that's more in the spring. So our research program, we have a weekly noon conference on Wednesdays that's dedicated solely to just research projects and within our group, and that's with Dr. Guptill and Dr. Sanders facilitating that. It's a very strong component of our curriculum, and a research project for each fellow is encouraged and strongly supported. At the end of the fellowship year, you will be board eligible to take the neuromuscular medicine certification exam in addition to the electrodiagnostic medicine exam. And outside of the fellowship, there's a lot to do within Durham and also around the state. This is a video that the GME office here put together of life in Durham, since it's hard to get down to visit during this time. But from here, it's a easy 2.5 hour, 3-hour drive to the west or to the east to get to Beach Mountain to go skiing, or to go to Sunset Beach, which is my personal favorite, Blue Ridge Parkway, lots of things to do outside, in addition to Duke Gardens, which is a picture of here in the top right, that's just across the street from here, the American Tobacco Trail, lots of things to do outside, in addition to art and music. And this is a picture of the Botanical Gardens of North Carolina in the middle, and the North Carolina Art Museum, the Sculpture Garden outside, and they also plant this beautiful field of sunflowers. So that's a picture I took this past summer. And if you have children, the Museum of Life and Science is one of the best children's museums I've ever been to, and it's just so entertaining. And so that's a picture of the tree houses there. And lastly, this is a little bit just when the pandemic was starting. We were deciding to decide how far away to be from each other. This is our head technician, Paul, and our neuromuscular nurse, Missy. And currently masked up, though, these are our current fellows, is Yohei, Peggy, Daniel, and Jarrett. And then please check out our website for more information about the fellowship. And this is the link I was talking about for the tour for the hospital. So you can kind of take a look at that and get an idea of the campus. And I'm happy to answer questions at the end.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to present the Hopkins Neuromuscular Fellowship. I think it's one of the oldest fellowship programs in the country. It was founded by Dr. Dan Drachman in 1972, soon after the department was formed. This is the old hospital, but now we have the new hospital, and a lot of the inpatient service takes place in the new hospital. So why Hopkins? First of all, we have a very large faculty with expertise in all aspects of neuromuscular diseases. There are many multidisciplinary subspecialty clinics, and there's exposure to both adult and pediatric neuromuscular disease and experts. The faculty is very active in both clinical and basic research. Many of them are well funded by both NIH and foundations. And the fellows get exposure to both EMG, muscle biopsies, muscle and nerve biopsies, and also they have an opportunity to learn skin biopsy reading if they choose to. And I know Baltimore has a bad reputation, but I've been here since my residency starting in 1994, and I can tell you that it has improved a lot. So the neuromuscular faculty, unfortunately, I don't have everybody's picture. I don't think I could have fitted everything into one slide. There are 23 clinical faculty in our division, including 4 that are pediatric neuromuscular specialists. In addition, we have PhD research faculty that do disease-oriented neuromuscular research. And the subspecialty interests of these faculty cover all aspects of neuromuscular diseases, including ALS, muscular dystrophy, inflammatory myopathies, as well as peripheral neuropathies, including inherited neuropathies and myasthenia gravis. As I mentioned, many of the faculty members are heavily involved in research, and most faculty, I would say, split their time 2/3 doing research, either clinical or basic, and 1/3 for clinical services and teaching. So the clinics at Hopkins are split between 3 sites. So the main hospital, and this is the outpatient center where most of the neuromuscular clinics are, and the EMG at the main hospital is here. And the fellows also rotate at the Johns Hopkins Bayview Medical Center, which is just a couple miles down the road. And we have a subspecialty clinic there, the Myositis Center, and the fellows have a chance to rotate at the Myositis Center and also do EMGs at the Bayview Medical Center. For fellows who are interested in pediatric neuromuscular diseases, we have opportunity to rotate at the Kennedy Krieger Institute, where there's an MDA clinic geared towards pediatric MDA patient populations. For the ALS, we have a multidisciplinary clinic that is probably one of the largest in the country. There are 5 faculty members that just specialize in ALS, and we see a lot of patients. Also, the peripheral neuropathy clinic is probably, again, one of the larger neuropathy centers where we have 8 faculty members who just specialize in peripheral neuropathies. So in terms of the service centers, as I mentioned, there are 2 EMG labs. One is at the main hospital, where we do 8 to 10 cases per half-day session, although these numbers are a little bit lower since the COVID started, partly because we have to clean the rooms in between patients. And the Bayview Medical Center handles mostly neuropathy and kind of garden variety entrapment neuropathies and so forth. The neuromuscular histopathology lab, 2 of our faculty members actually do the nerve and muscle biopsies, and 4 of us read the biopsies throughout the year, and we handle between 3 and 4, sorry about that. We handle about 300 to 400 biopsies every year. The Cutaneous Nerve Lab, or the Skin Lab, really was started at Hopkins by our previous chairman, Jack Griffin, when I was a resident here. So this goes back to more than 25 years ago. And it's under the leadership of Dr. Michael Polidevkis, and they process more than 2,000 biopsies every year. And most of these are biopsies generated either in our own clinics or referrals sent from the other physicians. So there's very extensive research among the faculty members. The clinical research covers almost all aspects of neuromuscular diseases. In terms of the basic research, they parallel what people's clinical interests are. The only area where we don't have any faculty member who's doing basic research is myasthenia gravis and muscular dystrophy. So the fellow schedule is kind of they are on a 2-month rotation, but each week they do 2 subspecialty clinics, 2 EMG clinics, and then they have a half a day of either biopsy pre-reading or doing inpatient consults. And then 1 day is dedicated to biopsy reading. Throughout the week, we have an 1.5 hour long weekly neuromuscular conference case series every Wednesday. And also the fellows are given an opportunity to teach the neurology and pathology residents. So they give the neuromuscular pathology seminar series to the residents. We take 2 to 3 fellows every year, and it's basically a 1-year clinical fellowship with an option to extend it for 1 to 2 years. We also have this opportunity to have a joint fellowship with the NIH, with NINDS. These are fellows that are hired by the NIH, but they spend their first year of clinical training at Hopkins. And at the end, fellows will be eligible for certification for the ABM, but also for the UCNS Neuromuscular Pathology Fellowship if they wish to. So there's a tremendous support for the fellows. First of all, there are a lot of faculty members who really take interest in supporting the career development of the fellows. The fellowship, I think, is probably the easiest years of your life. There's no overnight calls and no weekend call schedule. And there's a lot of access to educational materials within easy reach of the fellows room or in the microscope room. We also provide a book fund to attend conferences or use for books. Although this year we had to pare it down a little bit due to the financial situation from COVID. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me directly. Thank you.
My name is Mike Cartwright. I am the fellowship director at Wake Forest, and actually one of our fellows has also joined us. So at the end, if you have questions, Dr. Sugar's just waved, and she's on the call as well. So we have 10 minutes, so we got to be pretty quick. But I'm going to go over our location here at Wake Forest in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, the structure of our fellowship. I'll overview our faculty, and then talk about our strengths, and then I have contact. So we are in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is right here, which is considered the Piedmont Triad. The Piedmont means the foothills, so we're at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and the Triad is High Point and Greensboro, these 3 cities. This is Winston-Salem. And then we have pictures, and actually one of them is the same as Dr. Gable's picture. This one, except for it has a car in it, and hers did not. But this is where we're located. So we're in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. This is the Blue Ridge Parkway here, which is very beautiful all year round, especially in fall. And then we are not too far from the ocean, a couple-hour drive, and people do lots of weekend getaways to the beach, which is a fantastic thing to do. And then one of our faculty, Dr. Walker, lives right near the medical center, and this is a picture he took, which is out the front of his house in the little park, and it shows what North Carolina looks like in the spring, which to me is the most beautiful time of year, and you can see all the photos there. This is the medical center. Again, this is the city in the background right here, but this is our main medical center right here. And this is, I'll talk about it a little bit, but we do basically half your time here and then half your time at a smaller satellite clinic that's just a few minutes away. So as I said, we're in the Winston-Salem of the Piedmont Triad, the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, close, not too far from the ocean. We're a city of about 250,000 people. The triad with Greensboro and High Point ends up being about 1.7 million people. We have a very diverse city. Our population is 40% Black, 40% white, 15% Hispanic, and 5% Asian. We're also in a very affordable part of the country, which makes it very livable. We've got great weather. We have minimal traffic, but lots of amenities, sports and arts and restaurants. We have a pretty large catchment area because we're off in the western portion of the state. And so we see patients from all over North Carolina, a good portion of Virginia, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Georgia. Last year, in the summer and fall, we joined Atrium Health, so Wake Forest and Atrium Health combined. Atrium is a large health system based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So we are now huge. We're the biggest health system in North Carolina and South Carolina. We have 50% more Medicaid visits than any other system in North Carolina. We've got 70,000 employees, and it ends up being one of the top 10 largest health systems in the country. And so we have a really enormous catchment area in how we grow this. That's about the city and the part of the country that we're in. So our fellowship structure, we take 2 fellows per year. We take taken physicians that are trained as MDs or DOs, neurologists, child neurologists, and physiatrists. And so we enjoy training people with different backgrounds. Over the years, it's morphed a little bit, and I think it's really turned out well now that we have, what we do is we alternate weeks. So one fellow will be in clinic and the other will be in lab, and then the next week they switch. And our fellow that's covering the lab also covers all the inpatient consults. And so what we do is we put the fellows together on Monday and Friday mornings so that the inpatient fellow, the fellow that's doing the lab, can check out to the fellow that's going to be on the next week, and so we can do supervised checkout with faculty on Monday and Friday mornings. It really facilitates patient care. I agree, it's a great year of your life. There's no call, there's no weekends, which is fantastic. Our fellows have 3 weeks of vacation and a week of professional days, but if our fellows are interested in further conferences, we're certainly going to support that even if they've used all their professional days. So as I indicated, we have sort of this weekly switching situation. So the Emg Lab is at the main medical center, and then our clinic is at what's called the Shepherd Street Clinic, which is really nice because it's very easy for the patients to get in. We have large exam rooms, it's a brand new space, so that's really convenient. That's about a 5 to 10 minute drive from the main medical center, so very, very close. I'll do the clinic and then I'll explain the Emg Lab. So in the clinic, our fellows will see 6 to 8 patients per half day. In general, on Monday, they'll be doing general neuromuscular clinic. On Tuesday, they'll be doing MDA clinic. We have an MDA center, both adult and pediatrics, so separate adult, separate pediatrics, but our fellows do both. On Wednesday, they will do ALS clinic generally. We have an ALS center of excellence. And then on Thursdays, more general neuromuscular clinic. And then on Fridays, the fellows have their own neuromuscular clinic in the morning. And then, so both fellows are doing that. And then at 1 o'clock, we do pathology. We've been doing that virtually once a week. It's been fantastic. We've been doing that with a lab in Arkansas, actually, called Arcana Labs. It's in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so we all get on virtually and do muscle biopsy, nerve biopsy, epidermal nerve fiber density, whatever neuromuscular path is available that week. And there's a lot. It's a very large active path group. And then also on Friday afternoons, we have didactics. That's when we do our lecture series. We do some of our clinics at different places. So, for example, our ALS clinic is at this building called Comp Rehab, which is also extremely convenient at one level. It's this incredibly nice space where we have all the different health professionals that we work with. A large multidisciplinary ALS clinic. And then so then the other week, our fellows in the Emg Lab. We do 6 patients in general, 6 patients per half day, and sometimes up to 8 if we're doing a couple of inpatients. In the lab, the fellow will be doing nerve conduction studies. They'll be doing EMG. We do a lot of neuromuscular ultrasound. We do autonomic testing. We do single fiber EMG, skin biopsies, lumbar punctures. And then again, the fellow in the lab will be doing both the inpatient EMGs and the consults. And I would estimate that we do fewer than 1 inpatient consult or EMG per day. And so maybe 3 to 4 per week, something like that, of the inpatient EMGs. So again, if you're on the EMG rotation in the morning, we'll put you actually in clinic so that the two fellows are together. But then Monday afternoon till Thursday afternoon, the fellows will be in the EMG lab. We currently use Natus Viking equipment, and we're switching to Cadwell. And so actually our fellows will have experience with both, because we'll keep a few of the Viking around. We have 6 EMG rooms, and we have, it depends on how many techs, but at least 4 techs that are active in our EMG lab. And then again, if you're on that EMG rotation Friday morning, or the EMG week, Friday morning, you will do clinic with your fellow, and then pathology and didactics in the afternoon. So our didactic schedule is that Mondays at noon we do a case conference. And so we do neuromuscular cases that are presented by either the fellows or the residents. The residents do 3-month rotations in neuromuscular. Fridays at 1 we do that virtual pathology, again through our Emg Labs. And then Friday afternoon we do our lectures. And so we have a Neurophysiologic lecture series, which is EMG neuroconduction studies, basics and advances, new basics to more advanced teaching. We have a neuromuscular ultrasound series. We have a neuromuscular medicine series. We do research meetings. Our fellows do at least 1 project per year. Dr. Shorters and I were talking about that today. She's got 3 projects that she is working on. And then we do journal club also on Friday afternoon. We'll do that tomorrow, for example. We'll do a journal club day. These are our faculty. I put them in alphabetical order. So I listed where they did their fellowship training and then what they're specifically interested in. So Dr. Bonte did her fellowship training at Medical College of Georgia. She is interested in integrative and complementary neuromuscular medicine. She does injective therapeutics and has an interest in neuromuscular ultrasound. Dr. Harris did his training at Harvard. He was our previous fellowship director, and so it's really great to have him still here. And so there's a lot of institutional knowledge there, which is really just great. He's also our section director, and he does ALS clinic and MDA clinic and does single fiber EMGs. This is me. I did my training here at Wake Forest. I'm from Minnesota, but I did all my training here at Wake Forest. And I do the ALS clinic, again, the Center of Excellence. I do the MDA clinic, both adult and pediatrics. I do the majority of our pediatric cases and all of our genetic therapies, which is super exciting and interesting for SMA and Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And then I do a lot of neuromuscular ultrasound. This is Dr. Gandhi. She did her training at Duke. She is interested in immune-mediated disease, and so myasthenia gravis, CIDP, and has particular interest in amyloidosis and porphyria. This is our newest faculty member, Dr. Cohen. So she did her training at the University of Rochester. She's she does the MDA clinic and is very interested in muscle disease. So she's doing a lot of focused research right now on myotonic dystrophy. There's a number of grants already and is applying for more. And then Dr. Walker is recently an emeritus faculty member, but we still interact with him quite a bit. So he did his training at the University of Michigan, had a very interesting background in does chemodenervation and movement disorders, and started our neuromuscular ultrasound program in the late 1980s. So we've been doing neuromuscular ultrasound for 3 decades. We have other faculty that we work with, that our fellows work with some. They all trained actually at Wake Forest. And Dr. Chris did our neuromuscular fellowship, and he does general neurology, neuromuscular, and EMG. Our fellows will work with him, some in the EMG lab. Dr. Pinion, before we were neuromuscular, we were electrophysiology, and so he did an EMG clinical neurophys fellowship, and is interested in general neuromuscular sleep and EMG. And then Dr. Tate does movement disorders and botulinum toxin chemodenervation. So our fellows that are interested in doing that rotate with Dr. Tate. So our strengths, I think that we have a really good balance between clinic and procedures, and it's very well organized, just kind of the way it's worked out over the years. So our fellows get hundreds of procedures. I was doing this with Dr. Sugars today, and she's logged hundreds of procedures, which is good. I think fellowship is a great time to learn procedures, and we certainly have a lot of exposure. I think we have a really good breadth of exposure for our fellows, our trainees. We again have an ALS Center of Excellence. We have a funded MDA clinic for both adults and kids. We do a lot of immunotherapies, a lot of infusion therapies. We do a lot of nusinersen and Zolgensma and Exondys and all the different genetic therapies for SMA and Duchenne and different infusion treatments for all kinds of new conditions like amyloidosis, Fabry's, all these different things. We see kids and adults, which is, I think, really good training. For those of you that are pediatric or child neurology trained, we are a bit flexible in that we can add more pediatrics depending on what a trainee's interest is. Well, we certainly have strength in neuromuscular ultrasound. This has been part of our practice for 20, probably 30 years. Our fellows, we have a neuromuscular ultrasound course, an annual course at Wake Forest that's been going on for 15 years. Our fellows teach at that course. Our fellows start their own neuromuscular ultrasound practices and do so all over the country. I think this is important because this is a rapidly growing field. Imaging in general is rapidly growing for neuromuscular ultrasound in particular, and we're proud that we wrote the book on neuromuscular ultrasound. We have really engaged faculty, which I think is great. And so those first 5 faculty that I listed, that's who you're going to work with on a regular basis, and that's who are going to be at the conferences. Right now they're virtual, but they hopefully will be back in person soon. So they are logged on to those virtual conferences, and we have quite a bit of engagement with them. And then finally, I think our fellows are prepared for a wide variety of practices, which is great. And so we have fellows, one of our fellows last year went to Wayne State and is starting his own lab in inherited neuropathy, and so you can go into research-heavy practice. Our other fellow last year is at Marshall and was doing more standard academic practice, so doing research, education, and clinical, and starting an ALS center there. On average, our fellows during their fellowship year, so just during that 1 year, published 1 or 2 publications. Some of our fellows, the year before our previous year, 2 years ago, one of our fellows went down to South Carolina and he's doing a hybrid clinical and education practice. And then his co-fellow was doing sort of a classic standard clinical outpatient practice. And so I think our fellowship does a really good job of preparing you for any of those options. This is my email. Our coordinator is April Edwards. This is her email. And then we have our fellowship website, which I encourage you to go to. Thanks a lot.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Carolina Garcia, and I'm the Neuromuscular Fellowship Program Director here at Emory University. And I'm going to go last here, and then we'll have some time for some questions. So this just a couple of pictures of our hospital. So this is our main hospital. This is where our ALS clinic happened. This is where our neuromuscular pathology lab has their sign-outs. And here in the bottom is our brain health center. This is our outpatient clinic, and this is where most of our clinics happen and where our Emg Lab is. We have a 1-year neuromuscular fellowship, and we have currently 1 position per year. This fellowship was actually born from our CNP fellowship that we had our EMG track and our neuromuscular track. That's the fellowship I did. And later we converted it into a neuromuscular fellowship. We have a neuromuscular faculty with different areas of interest. Dr. Benamor, she's one of our neurohospitalists, so she does a lot of our inpatient EMG studies. Dr. Fournier and Dr. Glass, they are our ALS clinic directors, and Dr. Glass is the director of our neuromuscular pathology lab. Then we have Dr. Harrison and Karakis. They both are mostly interested in clinical neurophysiology, so they will be mostly in the EMG lab. Dr. Kessner, she is, her main interests are myasthenia gravis, and she also has interest in peripheral nerve injuries that we'll talk a little bit about later. And then Dr. Yupadia Ayula, she is our neuromuscular pediatric faculty that runs our MDA clinic. So we have numerous types of neuromuscular clinics. So we have our regular general neuromuscular clinic that meets every day except for Fridays. We have our ALS clinic that happens twice a month. Currently is happening virtual, but when we go back to in-person clinics, it'll be at the main hospital. Then we have our MDA clinic that means once a month. Then we have also this peripheral nerve combined clinic. This is a clinic that is run by Dr. Kessner, one of our neuromuscular faculty, and Dr. Bullis, one of our peripheral nerve surgeons. So this is a clinic where we get a lot of referrals of patients with traumatic nerve injuries. So patients come for a whole day, get their consultation with their neuromuscular physician, their surgeon, and they also get their electrical studies. And then we have this newer clinic for ALS diagnosis that was recently named as RAISE Clinic. It's mostly to try to grab earlier diagnosis ALS so they can participate in our research trials. And this meets twice a month, and it's 2 faculty back to back seeing approximately 10 potential new ALS diagnoses. And it's also paired up with EMG during that visit if needed. Then we have our Emg Lab that does approximately 1,500 examinations a year, including single fiber. We have also the Neuromuscular Pathology Lab, where you meet for sign out once a week every Monday, currently being done virtually. And we have approximately 300 muscles and 100 nerve specimens per year. In our Emg Lab, that's where we do our neuromuscular ultrasounds. You fellows will also be expected to do inpatient neuromuscular consults and inpatient EMG nerve conduction studies. We give fellows 1 month of elective, 3 weeks of vacation, and there's no call. For the teaching, a lot of our lectures are together with the clinical neurophysiology for the electrodiagnostic part, and then the neuromuscular standing lectures that were part of the EMG track that I told you about. So at the beginning of fellowship, the first 2 months, it's an intro lecture series given by faculty on both neuromuscular topics and electrodiagnostics. Then after that, we transition to our weekly fellowship series that are given by both faculty and fellows, and the fellow talk responsibilities get shared with the clinical neurophysiology fellows. We also meet weekly for our neuromuscular conference at our clinic, and this is where the fellows discuss interesting cases with the neuromuscular faculty. And finally, we have our weekly grand rounds organized by the neuro department. During their year, fellows will take the AANEM neuromuscular examination as their in-service exam. And then upon graduation, they're eligible for both the neuromuscular board exam through the ABPN and the electrodiagnostic exam through the ABEM. And just a couple of things about Atlanta. If any of you have not been here, it's a very cosmopolitan, diverse city. It's also great in the it's not as cold as the north, like with all of us here from the south. It's very close to the Georgia mountains, to Lake Lanier. There are a lot of nearby vacation spots, and some of them are in South Carolina and North Carolina. We have a lot of areas where you can have recreational activities. We have museums, the botanical gardens, orchestra. I think it's very family friendly, but it's also friendly for single people. And this is our contact. This is my contact, and this is the contact of our program coordinator with our website in the bottom. Thank you very much.
As we're waiting for some questions to come in, Charlotte Atkins, the executive director, has asked me to ask all of you, what drew you to neuromuscular medicine? Why should a resident choose neuromuscular over any other specialty?
I really like the diagnostic process. I like that drew me to neurology, and I felt that going through the diagnostic process, both the history, the examination, and then being able to take the next step and do an EMG and read a biopsy and do imaging, and put that all together and make the diagnosis, and then continue to follow the patient and do treatment and follow them for years. I think I was drawn to that whole spectrum of care. And I really like anatomy, and so I like the peripheral anatomy and just sort of localizing things. There's a bunch of reasons, but those were sort of the main reasons.
Hey, Carissa Gable here at Duke. I would say similar reasons for, I guess, to Mike. I think what we teach the medical students about neurology that's different, and first and foremost is localization first. And so I think that's exceedingly important within neuromuscular. And I decided on that kind of later in my residency, and the thing that drew me to that was not only the anatomy and the localization, but also the patient populations. So many different varied types of diseases, so many areas for research and moving the field forward, in addition to that sort of more black and white, less gray zones of, you know, is it a myopathy or is it a neuropathy? Well, let's, you know, do the clinical exam, which I love, like the neuromuscular and neurologic exam, and then to the extension of that exam being the electrodiagnostic studies. And then, you know, I can do a muscle biopsy on my patient and look at the pathology and kind of like give continuity of care for the entire course of the diagnosis and treatment. So I think that makes neuromuscular unique and special.
And this is Carolina, I'm from Emory. I think, of course, we probably have similar reasons why we went into neuromuscle. Definitely the diagnostic workup for it, the fact that we get to do that next step, that next test to confirm our suspicion. The physical exam is also something that is very appealing, like the fact that you have these couple of tools and you can localize something very in significant detail. We have a very broad areas of disease. So it's not that we're focused in one specific part of the nervous system. We own the neuromuscular junction, the peripheral nerve, the muscle, and the anterior horn. So we see a lot of diseases that manifest very early in life. You can see pediatric cases, you can see adult cases. We have, of each section, we have the hereditary version of the disease, the acquired treatable condition, or the more neurodegenerative condition that there's no treatment for. So I think that's what really drew me to it.
Yeah, I think I would say the same reasons. It's the ability to go from seeing the patient, obtaining history, doing electrophysiology, and carrying it out all the way to the pathology. Is probably what attracted most of us to neuromuscular medicine. It's very unique in neurology. And I think one of the questions was, do the fellows have a longitudinal clinic, or are they paired with faculty for all clinics? At Hopkins, you know, the fellows are paired with an individual faculty during their 2-month rotations, but they also have their own clinic that they follow the patients longitudinally once a month, their own, similar to the resident continuity clinics.
At Emory, all the fellows will be paired with faculty during clinic.
At Wake Forest, you have your own clinic on Friday mornings. The fellows will have their own fellows clinic every Friday morning. Staffed by faculty, but they're your patients.
At Duke, you're paired with a faculty for 3-month rotations, and then there are 6 months when you're in MDA clinic throughout the year for the adult MDA clinic, so that provides some level of continuity for those patients as well.
One of the questions that we've had for a couple of the nights is, does your program accept PM&R applicants?
Hey, this is Mike at Wake Forest. We do. We've had several PM&R fellows over the last couple of years, which has been great.
Yeah, we have accepted, but over the years we had only one applicant and one fellow that came through our program.
At Duke, we don't. We have had pediatric neurology. We actually have one pediatric neurologist this year, kind of from time to time.
And at Emory, we also don't. We haven't had any applicants either.
I see that 2 of our fellows, Arjun and Chua, are on the line. So if any of the resident applicants have an interest talking to the fellows, please feel free.
That would be wonderful. That was my next thing, is to ask if we did have any fellows on board. Would any of the fellows like to chime in on what your experiences are with your program?
I'll be happy to share my experiences. My name's Chelsea. I'm a fellow at Wake Forest, and I did my residency as well at Wake Forest in neurology. Just like what Dr. Cartwright was talking about, I feel like we have a great balance of exposure to procedures and a variety of neuromuscular patients in clinic throughout our program. I think what I love about our program is especially the area of Winston-Salem, which I'm originally from Georgia, but feel a great work-life balance can be found in Winston-Salem with a lot of things to do, and everyone really is great to work with and enjoys their job. So I love coming to a place where, you know, everyone's very passionate about what they do. I like our exposure to procedures, especially neuromuscular ultrasound is one of my interests. And sorry, my cat keeps hitting my computer. And I think we have great exposure to a lot of specialty ALS and also pediatric patients as well, which I'm adult trained, so I like the balance of having the exposure to pediatric patients as well.
I can chat. I'm from Arjun from Hopkins. I had a fantastic experience here. I did my residency training here at Hopkins, and I stayed on for fellowship, and I've had a phenomenal experience. You get a really wide breadth of exposure. I saw Kennedy's this past week. I've seen pretty much every single unusual disease that you can think of here, and we've had all the faculty are very, very supportive and very encouraging. And I get along really well with my co-fellow, who is my classmate. And so we have a fantastic time together. Chiva, you want to say anything?
Oops, sorry, I was muted. Yes, I want to echo everything that Arjun said. This is the best year ever.
Yeah.
And like, it's like at the end of residency, it felt like we had learned a lot in the past, preceding years. And then this year, it's kind of time to like digest some of that, and then also learn about how much we never knew. And also like, it's also a really good process of learning about things that you're not familiar with and how to tackle that going forwards. And there's a ton of faculty at Hopkins who are super, super specialized in their field and super experts in their field. And
yeah.
I'm really grateful to have that kind of resource to be able to learn from. It's very flexible. So you kind of get the option to pursue your different interests and not get a ton of, like, you're not really shepherded in a certain direction, and you feel free to like do whatever you feel like is good for your learning. And it's a really amazing experience.
Thank you both. I actually wanted to also comment on that. Our fellows when they're choosing their clinics, they can, because we have so many faculty members, they can kind of tailor their training if they want to go into one direction and do more of those type of clinics. But they all have to do the standard set of clinics, but then they can add extra clinics to their schedule to learn, kind of further specialize in one area. We're very flexible in that sense.
Okay, well, we will go ahead and wrap it up. So as we're closing out, I just want to remind everybody of a couple of events with the AANEM. New this year, we do have a spring virtual conference. So that is March 2nd through the 5th. Registration is open now. Fellows and residents, you are able to attend this for free. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to get involved. Please feel free to do that. You will need to register online, but your fee will be waived. Those of you taking the neuromuscular and EDX exam, self-assessment exam, that is May 3rd through the 10th. Please contact your coordinator if you'd like to get registered for that. And of course, our favorite is the AANEM 2021 annual meeting in Aurora, Colorado. That is October 13th through the 16th. We are praying this pandemic will be done by then and that we can see everybody again in person. It was really hard not seeing everybody this year. Just keep our fingers crossed, everything goes well going forward. Personally, I want to thank all the program directors. Thank you so much for presenting with us tonight. We do know how busy your schedules are, so we appreciate you taking some extra time to share your programs and your fellowships. Fellows, thank you for sharing your experiences. It's very helpful to hear firsthand what your experiences are. And residents, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate, again, your attendance. I hope you enjoyed this and that you found this helpful. It's been a great success, and so we look forward to doing this again next year. As I maybe stated earlier on, the videos are all recorded, so they will be available on the website probably within 24 hours. So feel free to go back out, review any of your program information, share the information with your fellow residents in case they weren't able to attend, and be sure to ask questions. So the programs gave you contact information, or you're certainly welcome to use the portal, which does have a communication function right there. So with that all being said, thank you again, everybody, and have a great night.